Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to have Kaya Jones with us today. Kaya is the National Deputy Director of Youth Engagement for Harris Walls and has been working around the clock for the upcoming election. So, Kaya, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Before we jump into the questions, I'm going to read her bio and then we'll get into it. So, Kaya has been passionate about empowering youth and driving positive change. She is a dedicated professional with over 5 years of experience in strategic communications, project management, and youth engagement. Her journey has been marked by a commitment to fostering leadership among young women and promoting civic engagement on college campuses. As the East Coast Program Manager at Ignite National, Kaya led a team in empowering young women to become civically engaged and run for elected office, resulting in the registration of over 20,000 young voters. Kaya spearheaded initiatives to establish and nurture chapters, organized boot camps, and facilitated workshops while securing over $100,000 in grant funding to sustain programming across multiple states. Prior to this, Kaya honed her skills in strategic communications and client management as an account executive at Brunswick Group, where she produced high-quality client account materials and contributed to strategic and crisis communication efforts. Her leadership experience extends past professional roles as she served in various leadership positions at Temple University, including Vice President of External Affairs for the Student Government and Diversity Peer Leader for the Office of Institutional Diversity, Equity, Advocacy, and Leadership. And Kaya also has a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism and Political Science from Temple University, along with additional training in project management. Kaya brings a unique blend of skills and experiences to any team. So Kaya, again, thank you for joining us. We're so excited to have you with us today. And if you're ready, let's jump into the first question.
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, so today we are 27 days away from the election on November 5th. Although early voting and voting by mail has already begun in several states, you made a decision to invest your time and this stage of your career to a cause in a campaign. Would you mind please sharing your journey and what brought you to your current role in the campaign?
Sure thing. And thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. But where do I start? Okay, so oftentimes in life, I feel like many of my experiences have been full circle moments. So when speaking of my experience back when I was a student at Temple University, I ran and won an all women led campaign. Um, Everyone down to the social media person, up to the president was female, and we did it to just sort of make a point that like women belonged in these spaces. And if these spaces weren't going to be, created for us, we were going to create our own opportunity to be in them. And I've kind of led with that brand of just like wanting to see women like pushing the boundaries and tearing down barriers that once stood. So it's very much like been a journey that I didn't imagine that I would continue to receive these incredible opportunities to now like elect the first female president. But I say it's full circle. Previously, as you shared, I worked at a nonprofit called Ignite National. And actually, I haven't really shared this publicly, but I loved working there, loved my coworkers. But one thing that is true with the nonprofit space is they need funding to keep going. And unfortunately, the organization that I was working at, they just received decreased funding. I think really due to like the economic impacts on the economy overall. Like people were dedicating their time and resources to more important issues. Um, of our times, and they unfortunately had to make budget cuts, which involved staff cuts, and they laid off over 40% of their staff. One of those people was me, and never did I imagine that I would be laid off, but it sort of it came at a perfect time where I was praying and asking, like, I think there's more out for me. Even people that I was managing at the time were encouraging me to, like, you have this, great light, you have all these ideas, like, you should be making a bigger impact. And it was really those people that led me to, like, stop dragging my feet and just apply places. And I saw this role, a youth engagement role at the time, it was like a campus director manager role, and it was for the Biden for President campaign. So I just applied, not thinking much of it, and that turned into a job. And then now it turned into, I guess, I like to say, an a more historic and even more exciting for me just because of my identity role with Kamala Harris being at the top of the ticket. So
Yeah,
that's what led me here.
thank you for sharing that and for specifically mentioning the part about youth engagement. I think that ties directly into the next question about the role of youth in this election. You talked on this a little bit, but can you frame this campaign from the standpoint of young people and particularly young women of color? What does this election mean, and why do so many people say that this is the most important election of our lifetimes?
Yeah, this one certainly is the most important. I mean, we have the opportunity on one hand to really save democracy, um, and what the electoral process or how government functions overall with this election. And I say it's so important because I truly see myself in the candidate as someone that comes from both Black, African American, as well as Asian American descent. Like, it's so powerful to see someone at the top of the ticket that looks like me and talks like me and shares similar experiences as me, because that hasn't been something that many young people that are also like me have experienced in their lifetime. Um, I know for folks that are like new voters, they may not even remember the time when Trump was in presidency. And even more than that, like a similar campaign that folks have been comparing this to is Obama's presidency and his campaign. And some folks may not even remember that. I know for myself, I was pretty young. I remember the feeling, but I don't remember like what exactly was going on. So it's just great to be able to relive a similar type of like joy and excitement, enthusiasm about politics because I think for young people, that was something that had been missing for so long, just like feeling like my vote doesn't matter or like no matter what we do, we're not going to see the change we want to see. But I truly believe this like we have candidates at the top of the ticket that care about the issues that we're most passionate about, like when it comes to climate change, when it comes to economic issues, you know, student debt, reproductive rights and reproductive justice, like those are all issues that are on the ballot this year. And those are also all issues that young people care a lot about. So it's really exciting. And then like even more so, like we have the power in numbers to truly shape and like make the decision on this election. Like if young people go out and vote, I believe like what the campaign considers young that total number is about 44 million voters. So imagine if like all of us just show up, or even if half of those people show up, we could honestly like truly shape this election. So I think with knowing that, like the facts, and that the numbers, you know, could prove that we really could make an impact, I think it's really important that we're all making sure that we show up and not only show up, but like are bringing our friends and family into the fold to do the same.
I definitely resonate with what you said about the identity piece of it and how important it is to really drive people out there and get them to the polls. And for a lot of young people that are doing that, and maybe young people with siblings or children, for those who can't yet vote, I'd appreciate your thoughts on what those people can do, how they can get involved and participate, and why this election is so consequential to them, even though they can't contribute directly in the voting process.
Yes, that's such a great question, and we've really seen, like, those young voters that can't vote yet, that are under the age of 18, really stepping up this election and, like, realizing they do have a role to play outside of being able to cast their ballot. One of the partners that the campaign works closely with is High School Democrats of America, and we've got to do a lot of cool national programming with them of just, like, national phone banking calls, making sure that they're getting information to go out there and canvas and door knock. Those are all things that you don't have to be any age to really do. Or just something as simple as digital organizing and sharing information with your friends and family, whether it's on social media or through text. We have something that's called the Reach app. It's a website as well as an app, and the campaign actually curates content that folks can share via text message or on social media with their friends and family that like gives the facts, gives the most up to date information, and that's been a great tool that a lot of young people have been utilizing. Like takes the ease off of having to create your own content or really know it all, and be able to still share information with your friends.
Yeah, I love that bit of being able to share information because we a week ago or a couple weeks ago, my friends and I did a voter registration like table at school, and a lot of kids were like, "I'm not 18 yet, I can't register." And you can in a lot of places, you just have to be 16, and so I love, like, a place where they can get all their information and just sign up early, so, yeah, that sounds awesome. Getting into the issues which you listed so beautifully, but first starting with reproductive freedom, what's at stake for young voters following the Dobbs decision, and what is the path forward?
Yes. So we have two candidates that have completely opposing views when it comes to reproductive justice. We have someone that believes in a woman's right to choose and creating broader access for women, not only for their reproductive health, but their prenatal and postnatal care. I know for Black women, the mortality rate when they're pregnant is 3 times higher than other women. So just like keeping those things in mind and being aware of that, and we really like have a candidate that wants women to be in power of like how they choose to carry their body and do the things they want with it versus on the other side we have someone that's continuously trying to restrict and pull back um, those access, trying to strip funding in crucial communities for just like simple sexual health care. It goes beyond just the abortion topic. It really comes down to like how are we caring for people mentally and physically, and helping them sustain the best health. So it's a really big issue. Our campaign has been doing a lot around reproductive justice and reproductive freedom. We have our reproductive justice tour that's been hopping all over. It's had some really cool celebrities. I know if you're a Grey's Anatomy's fan, we actually got to stop at my old stomping grounds, Temple University, and have Dr. Addison, or as her real name, Kate Walsh, join us. And like that was so cool and then just to hear her speak on the topic of like why it's so important that women have these rights. So we're really doing a lot around it because we realize it's such an important issue, and we believe that women should have access to whatever they want and make decisions for their body.
Yeah, and freedom seems to be kind of a bigger veil of what the whole campaign is trying to get out there. And even, I mean, the campaign song like gets me hype every time I hear it. So, freedom definitely seems to be a big theme here. So, the vice president has put reproductive freedom into a larger conversation on personal freedom in general, including the freedom to love who you love, the freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, and then the freedom that unlocks all the others, the freedom to vote. So could you expand on this approach, and is this approach really resonating with voters, especially in those important swing states?
Yeah, I love this question. Thank you for asking. So I think it is resonating. I think it's something different, and it's what's really bringing the joy. When politics for the past few years has been so divisive, it's really focused on like bringing people together and realizing like we may not, and we're not going to like agree on everything the exact same, but there's a common ground and like there's an understanding or compassion that you have to have for other people, even if you don't resonate or even if you're not in that particular position. Like folks should still have the opportunity and the freedom to choose what they want to do. And being that we're the land of the free, I believe it's only right that Americans should get to choose, what they want to do and have the freedoms to do and have basic human rights, like the freedom to breathe clean air. Everyone should have that, and that shouldn't really be a choice. It should just be a given. It shouldn't be a luxury. It should be a necessity. So I think we're just really trying to go back to the basics where people are less divided and more together in this life.
And kind of speaking of like going back to the basics, I think something that I've heard a lot about, I'm sure the campaign does all the time, is the economy, and people keep going back to this specific issue. Young people in particular are concerned about their ability to land a high-paying job, to afford a home, to build wealth, not just necessarily get by. So, what is the campaign's message to young people on these economic issues?
Yeah, I mean, as a young person myself, I fully resonate with all these issues too. Being that, like, for this campaign, a lot of us have relocated to Wilmington, Delaware, and dealt with like a mini housing crisis here. Um, whether it's like having to support, your rent or housing wherever you were previously living and now supporting also where you're currently living to carry out this job. I think there has to be more opportunities for people to get ahead, and that's what the vice president, what VP Harris and Tim Walz are really trying to do. I'm not sure if you saw, but there's been a lot of great plans put out. She dropped her economic plan just like a few weeks ago in Pittsburgh that really highlights like giving tax credits for working families so that they can get ahead as they're trying to build their life and support their family, or giving first time home buyers, credit or down payment support for their first time buying a home. Like that's something that I really can't wait to take advantage of when the president, when the VP becomes the president, because I would love to buy a home, but right now it just seems so unattainable with like the prices and the costs. And I know for a lot of my peers, like they've had to move back home with their family. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But when you're really trying to think about, starting your own life and like what's next for you want to start creating that stability and like you want to have something to call yours. So I think this is a step in the right direction that we can be able to do this. And still be able to have some money in our pockets to do like the fun things that young people like to do, like travel or get an occasional drink out with their friends. Like we shouldn't have
Mhm.
to compromise on these things. We should be able to do both.
Yeah, and while looking to the next chapter, there also might be the kind of like you're looking to the past and you might have things looming over your head, like student loans, for example. So although this is still on economic well-being, I do want to kind of hone in on it a little bit. So whether it's student debt relief or more investment in minority serving institutions, what's at stake for young people in regards to student loans, and what's the campaign's platform on funding for education?
Yeah. So would just love to highlight like the great job that the current administration has done in supporting student debt relief and providing for higher education. So they've um, they've given over $17 billion, I'm sorry, 17
Mhm.
billion, there's a big difference, $17 billion to HBCUs to support the work that they're leading with such a unique population and demographic, just really trying to build up, young students of color so that they can receive the same opportunities of higher education. So whether it's like those schools have utilized it for to be able to admit more students and provide more scholarships or even enhance some of their facilities that haven't been renovated for a while, or get like those new professors that are doing such amazing work to increase the education that they're able to provide there. It's been a great investment. I know HBCUs across the country have really appreciated that. And then the administration, put out a historic student loan forgiveness resolution. And we saw just last week, I forget what all my days are mixing together, but just last week, that the judge actually granted that not be blocked. So looking to see that more young people and parents, because parents are also getting relief, and as well as people that have been paying off their loans for a while, like it isn't just a young person issue. But they're getting the relief that they've been waiting for, and not going to have that debt weighing over their shoulders any longer. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. The VP has expressed she wants to continue to support in ways that we can uplift higher education as well as help alleviate some of the burdens of student debt. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. And zooming out a little bit to an issue that affects everyone, the climate crisis. Um, this issue, I think, really galvanizes my generation in particular, as it should, and it should for everyone. So, what is the campaign's agenda to really get control of the crisis and to offer some hope to what seems like a very dismal situation?
Yeah, for me, it seems pretty clear. Without the earth to sustain us, without clean air and fresh water, like none of this other stuff
Yeah.
really, really matters. But I think it really matters for young people because we're realizing like we're the ones that are going to have to live with these impacts, and some of them may be at the point of being irreversible, and that's pretty scary to think about. And as we continue to experience like such tragedies and crazy climate or weather impacts, like it becomes even more real. I know that, our folks in North Carolina or currently in Florida are dealing with the impacts of hurricanes that have really altered their lives, maybe uprooting their homes or changing what their living situation looks like. And I first just want to acknowledge like no one should have to go through that, but like what can we be doing every day to support and like go backwards a little bit and that we're not and don't quote me on that because I know one of our slogans is like a new way forward, but really like trying to reverse some of the damage that has already been done when it comes to climate. And I'm just glad we have a candidate that admits that climate change and global warming is a real thing because on the other side they're like completely not even acknowledging it, which is pretty scary, and have no plans to implement when it comes to how we can address this very real, very science proven and doctor and everyone expert proven is that this is real and very much needs to be addressed. So that's what I'll say there.
Yeah, and kind of what you were saying about the new way forward, the slogan of the campaign. So looking ahead, what are the messages which you would want podcast listeners to pay attention to in this final stretch? What are the main points that you would want people to take away?
My favorite one this campaign, well, outside of "Say It to My Face" because that is that is my favorite one, but I love what our former First Lady Michelle Obama said around "Do something."
Yeah.
Like, we all have such a unique opportunity, and I really want folks to be thinking about it, like, when we look back 10 years from now, or when your kids are, growing up in this world, what side of history can you tell them that you were on? Were you on the one that really saw that path forward and was supporting and doing everything they can to make a difference? Or were you, not doing anything or and thinking, that was okay just because you weren't maybe doing the opposite thing or supporting uh, the opposition. But doing nothing is sort of the same as that.
Yeah.
So I'm really just encouraging people, please do something. If you vote already, take it a step farther and get your friends that don't vote or aren't registered to vote, help them with the process because it may just be those simple barriers that someone needs, like that accountability partner to say, hey, let's go to the polls together. So I'm encouraging people to do something, but then really take it that step farther and do something more.
Yeah, I remember watching that speech. I had some tears. It was very impactful. So for those people who think that maybe we're in the final stretch, it's too late to do anything, that people's minds are set, that they can't really contribute in any way, what resources would you point listeners to so that they can get involved?
No, that is not true. That's what I'll firstly say. Every day, every second counts. We have, what is it? 20, I should know this,
27.
27, 26. Okay. Days left. I'm like, I'm not counting election day anymore.
That's fair.
Right. So we only have a few days left, but also in the grand scheme of things, we have so much time. And I encourage people 2 ways that we're mobilizing, especially young people, is phone bank. Call your peers for the campaign. We have a youth phone bank every Wednesday and Sundays from 5 to 7 p.m. where we're actually calling student voters and in having discussions. And we get everyone from like the most conservative to the most liberal. And just to be able to have those thoughtful conversations about like, hey, what do you see that's happening in your community? Where do you want change? What issues are driving you to the polls this election? And really being able to talk through those with someone that may have a similar experience issue has been super impactful. So I encourage folks to join those, and I'm happy to follow up with you with more resources on how they can join those. And then another way, whether you're in a battleground state or a swing state, as folks call it, maybe it's a purple state in your vocabulary, we like get out there and start knocking on doors, join along, whether it's the campaign, it's your local Dem organization, or a partner org. Like, please start talking to folks. I say now is the time that we're just like in everyone's face. Um, if you're not in a battleground state, that's fine too. Our campaign has programs that are helping support people in nearby states to come and travel and be accommodated for their transportation to do this canvassing and door knocking. We really need all hands on deck at this point. And if that's too much, like I said, I've really been encouraging young voters, like, yes, donating is great, but what counts even more is like making sure that you and your friends are casting your ballot by November 5th. So if that means voting early, turning in your mail-in ballot by the deadline, absentee ballot, whatever it is, just please do that.
Yeah, I think peer-to-peer contact is very important, I think very meaningful. So thank you for that message and thank you for that rallying cry. I know you and your team are working around the clock, and I can't imagine how exciting but stressful and intense these days and nights are. So thank you for your time and sharing all your thoughts. And to all our podcast listeners, please make sure, as you just mentioned, that you're registered to vote and you have a game plan in place during early voting or on election day to get out there and cast your vote. So thank you so much again. I really appreciate all your time.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, and thank you all for who's watching and really can't wait to see how we show up at the polls this election.
Thank you.